Well, hello guys, welcome to a level up. Today we talk about game mastering. Now, what is game mastering? Game mastering is basically a way of teaching board games, or games in general, whereby you give them the basics of it, such as winning conditions, deployment or setup, and of what they can do during their turn. But all the other details, you basically teach them as the game goes on.
Hey everybody, Future Me here. Just wanted to give you a practical example of game mastering. In fact, this is the next day and I'm watching the episode of Stone Age from Tabletop, which I'll put a link below. As you can see, he gives a very rough overview at the front, and then as the game goes by and you see people doing things, that's when they tell you, okay, this is how many meeples you can use and all of that. It's a teach as you go system. And I think for the massive success of Tabletop, it just shows that this is a very effective way of teaching games. So, back to the video.
Now, this has several benefits, one of which the most obvious is the game gets played not only in a shorter time, but it gets played faster. Alright, that means the game starts faster. To give you an example of this, recently I played a game of Android last year in 2013, whereby literally the rules explanation, even without explaining every single rule, was 1 whole hour. Alright, now this not only cut into the gaming time, but the intuitive thing was that by the time the person has finished explaining all the rules, alright, we were still asking rules because, you know, it's a normal example whereby by the time you explain the rules on page 10, the person already forget what the rules on page 5 were. On top of that, this also helps with people with shorter attention span to keep them interested in the theme and the game, so that, you know, not by the time the rules are explained, they don't already lose interest and they're a bit sleepy. And the most obvious one is, of course, that if you game master and teach them as the game goes, they actually are doing the thing and they learn faster. I'll give you an example of this. Recently I played the game of Rex, which is the retheming of Dune by Fantasy Flight. And each of the factions play completely differently. So if I was to go through and explain all the rules and how each of the factions counter each other and everything, you know, it really was a way, to be honest, a waste of time, because most of them, right, could not even remember what their own faction did, not to mention to actually remember what the other factions did. So for me, I would, example, say like during the bidding phase, I would say like, okay, now it's the bidding phase. So when you bid for a card, alright, now you pass your money to the Lazax first. Then when the Lazax expires, I said, now you remember that you had to pass the money to the bank. You see, so the first few turns might be a bit slower, but it's actually much better than doing the other one where you explain every single rule, because in that one, when the game starts, you probably are still going to have to do the same thing anyway. Or examples is like games like Liberté, where, you know, the voting, that one, in fact, even if the people didn't learn how to do it, it doesn't matter, because actually all you need was one person to make sure that it's done correctly. You know, so actually, again, this way of game mastering actually helps to speed up the game. Then you also don't have the problem of too many shares. Like this person's like, okay, let's start here and start here. If one person does it, it's more consistent. Just like sometimes, like for me, I like one person moving the score chart instead of many people doing it, because sometimes someone might forget and then he adds himself twice. And the downside to this is that you might have people complaining that because they did not know what they could do before the phases start and all that, that they might feel duped out or win and all that. This mostly comes from maybe players who are a bit more competitive. So depending on your gaming group, you might actually need to explain all the rules. It again depends. The other one is because some rules actually do matter that the person knows it before he does it. And you know, sometimes when you forget to explain it and then the phases are already over, and it's not viable for him to take it back anymore and he gets a penalty, you do feel bad. So that is a learning experience, especially if you're not taught the game or game mastered the game before. But overall, in conclusion, it is a much better way of teaching games. It's my favorite way of teaching games. And on top of that, it actually drags a lot more people to try longer and harder games, because they know you're there to make sure everything flows smoothly, rather than them have not. Strangely, a lot of people don't like doing 28-page rulebooks and everything, especially for war games. So that's my tip. Please do try game mastering. Thank you very much. Till next word.